In 1865. Then many things happened between 1865 and the Great Depression. So if we look at our timeline again, the Great Depression starts in 1929. But the US Civil War ended in 1865. What happened between those years? Can you name one thing that happened before 1929, but after 1865? One thing that happened all over the world? Yeah? The First World War. World War I. And that is really important, right? First World War happened here in Europe, mostly. But at the end of the war, the United States joined the war. And the United States helped the Allies with the efforts. But a lot of the fighting didn't happen in the United States, it happened here in Europe. So who was the most affected by the First World War? Yeah? France, Germany, Europe, Britain, all of these countries were affected a lot. A lot of damage, a lot of people dying. Was the United States affected very much? No. They helped. They sent soldiers and they helped. But they weren't affected. So they didn't have to pay a lot of money. They actually got a lot of money from the war. Because they sold weapons, they sold lots of things. So the United States became very wealthy. Whereas Europe was devastated by the First World War. The United States actually got a lot of money from the war. So they started spending money. The United States, the quality of life increased. People were buying more things. At this time also, the cars were becoming very popular. Before this, people were riding in horses. But during this time, cars became very popular. People were buying cars, people were buying houses, people were buying things for their houses and spending a lot of money. And that is very important because then comes the Great Depression. As we were saying, in post-World War I, the United States was spending a lot of money. People were happy. There was jazz, there was Hollywood, there was a lot of movies. There was a big economy in the United States. But a few other things were happening at that time. After World War I, men came back, and what was happening at the end? Women wanted the right to vote. Women had always wanted the right to vote, but they started organizing to get the vote. And women started joining the workforce, which means women were no longer staying in the house, taking care of the house or in the fields or different things. They were going to work. And that was new, so that was adding a lot of money to the economy. Women had fought for the right to vote, and now they had the right to vote. And they started spending more money because women were also making money. So they started spending more money. And what happened? People got greedy. Do you know what greed is? Greed. Do you know what that is in Spanish? Soren, can you help us?
Avaricioso.
When you want too much.
That means
Greed
avaricioso.
means avaricia, right? So people were becoming greedy. They wanted more and they wanted more. So they were going to the bank and asking for money, asking, hey, can I have some money? And they were buying things, but they were also doing something new. They were investing in Wall Street, investing in the stock market. Stock market, mercado de acciones. Acciones is when you buy things of companies, parts of companies. So they were buying in the stock market. And they were spending more and more money. And prices were going up. And people were happy because they were making a lot of money with these stocks. But then one day, it stopped going up. And it started going down. And because there were so many people who were buying these things in the United States, it created a crash. That's Wall Street crash. When the stock market crashed, that means that the amount of money that people had, it was cut in half. People didn't have that money anymore. They were losing money. and companies were firing their workers. People were losing their jobs, and everything was becoming bad. And the United States was a really important country at this time, and it was trading with a lot of the world. And because it was trading with a lot of the world, it stopped doing that. And other countries in the world also felt the Great Depression. So during this time, people lost their jobs, people lost their homes, they didn't have enough to eat. There was a big problem with unemployment, with hunger, with famine. Children were dying of malnutrition. Things were happening that were really bad. But what did the US do to make a lot of money at the beginning? What did we say happened between the Civil War and the Great Depression? World War I. They sold weapons. So the United States realized, hey, war is very good for our economy. So what happened after the Great Depression? 1933, after that. Yes. World War II. So World War II happened, and that started to stimulate the economy of the United States. At the beginning, the United States wasn't in the war. It was mostly a European conflict again. France, Germany, the UK, Italy, Spain were in the war. The United States was just selling weapons and selling different things to these countries. So it was making a lot of money. And it was recovering from the Great Depression. Okay? So after the Great Depression comes World War II.